Hey guys, it's Adam Scougall, interior designer, and you are here. You're in a good spot this afternoon at 4:30 p.m. on the dot to enjoy wine and design with myself and a very special guest who's sitting there looking gorgeous this afternoon on a Friday afternoon. Big intros coming. Just to give you a little bit of information about me in case you don't know me too well, like I said, I'm an interior designer. I create beautifully unique homes for people staying put. If you would like to catch up with me at any point, feel free to message me, info@adamscougall.com. If you'd like a free 15-minute phone call with me, discovery call to talk about a project, I would be more than happy to talk to you in the next business day. Just PM me or send me an email to info@adamscougall.com. I am so excited today. We've got a big history here with this lady sitting next to me. She's not really sitting next to me. She's sitting in her gorgeous office in Willoughby. But I am terribly excited to talk to my good friend and amazing architect, Melonie Bayl-Smith. How are you today, Mel?
I'm good. At the end of a tough week.
I know you've had a tough week. So I'm just hoping that we can sort of chill out and I just want to know, do you know what? I want to know all the things that I don't know about your history, Mel. I've got to say this to whoever's watching. And if you are jumping on, guys, say hi, because we'd love to say hi to you and also ask questions and send comments through, lovely comments. I am really looking forward to speaking to you, Mel, because we honestly, for a long time, tell me, is this true? Did we literally just catch up together face-to-face for lunch after, how many years is it? 1991 to 2018. You're an architect. Your maths has got to be better than mine.
20.
How many years is it?
It was pretty, I think, if we were going to be technical, it was about 26 and a half years. But yes, that we hadn't seen each other face-to-face. It was the first time.
Amazing.
I think we'd spoken on the phone after we finished Year 12, but we hadn't actually seen each other. Yeah.
Wow. So we had a catch up then, but this is a good opportunity today to just talk about all of your experience as an architect. I mean, you are running your own firm, Bayl Architecture, which is actually spelt BIJL Architecture. Yes. You've got a fabulous website. Your work is wow to die for. So I'm looking forward to talking about a project of yours shortly. But it is Friday, so I have to ask, what is it exactly in that large glass that somebody has brought over to you in the corner?
Ding ding.
It is wine.
It's a Central Otago Pinot Noir.
Oh, very nice. And we had a glass of that recently, didn't we, Mel? Or something or other. We had a glass of wine together. Yes, I've got my usual cheap Chardonnay. I'm hoping Mel to get a sponsor for this show, and then they can send me a couple of bottles of decent wine. So cheers. Fantastic. We've got Christina on. Just a couple of shout outs before we kick off. Christina, how are you? Hi, I have my wine. That's fantastic. Who else have we got here? Linda, you got yours too. So fantastic, ladies. You're all on board. No cup of teas on there. It's all with the program for wine drinking on a Friday afternoon. So, Mel, let's have a chat. Yep. So I recently had the pleasure of actually being invited by you into one of your projects, it's to die for, fabulous. We're going to look at it Dawsey and House today. But what I'd like to do is I don't know any of this stuff really about your background. What inspired you really to get going in and become an architect and open such a reputable firm that has done so many fabulous properties, commercial, residential work. Over the years, you're not only somebody who's sort of a quiet achiever there, you're also giving back a lot. I mean, you're actually a mentor as well. And, you're always out speaking and, really providing mentorship to up and coming designers, architects. So there's a whole lot that you're giving back to your community. But just tell us about you. I mean, a lot of people know you. and you've had, you know, a lot of press that I'm finding there, Mel, about a lot of the fantastic work that you and your firm have done. But just tell us about your career in architecture so far.
My uncle was an architect, and he fostered an interest in architecture in me from quite a young age, and he used to encourage me to draw, as did my great uncle, who was a painter. And I came on my Dutch side of the family, the Bayls. There are a lot of photographers, and I guess the visual and the design and those sorts of things, and building, the act of building, was something that was quite strong in my family. So I, as you may remember, Adam, you know, a number of the previous high achievers at our school went on to do medicine and other things, and I think I had been groomed for that, but I actually really wanted to study architecture, so I was ecstatic when I got in. I think everyone else kind of went, you know, what the heck? Because I hadn't studied art like you, like for the HSC. I hadn't done tech drawing or engineering science, but I soon found out that at the University of Newcastle there was no requirement for any prerequisite for any subject, so I was very happy to study there. It's where my uncle had studied. And so I studied there for, it was 2 degrees, still is 2 degrees. I took a year off and travelled with a friend. And then I lived and worked in Newcastle for several years for a couple of different small practices. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about how not to run a business. I was always very intent on having my own business and my own practice. And when I moved to Sydney, I was very focused on becoming registered as an architect, and again trying to find my way, because I really didn't know anyone in Sydney at all. Apart from a few relatives, I had no contact. So I worked with someone who, again, I learned a lot about how to run a business, but how not to run a business. And I think I learned a lot about how to treat staff. So I treated the first 5 or 6 years post-graduation as a really big learning experience, not just about building and architecture, but about how does a business work, and what are the things that can make it difficult in business. And I mean, even all these years later, I still have my doubts about why I'm doing this. It can be very challenging, but I think it's really important to focus on the happiness of your clients, whether they be with a lot of obviously high-end residential work, but even our non-residential clients, it's very important to focus on what's going to best serve the client and best serve the wider community. Even in our residential projects, that's important. And so, you know, client satisfaction is extremely important and very high on our agenda, not without considering our design interests, but I think the greatest compliment that new clients give me is that, well, we like the fact that not every project looked the same. We know that you're not going to give us a cookie cutter solution, and we know that we can see that you listen to your clients, and I think that's a huge compliment, you know, whereas I think some architects would be horrified maybe to have a portfolio as divergent as ours, but I think it's our strength. So
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, Mel. I do remember you. Well, I thought it was medicine that you were going to get stuck into after school, and you're also a very creative person in terms of being a musician, which I don't know. Yes. I know on social media we get glimpses. You're either swimming or you're on the guitar, but you were playing piano drumming and piano recitals. Do you think architecture? I mean, it might. Sorry if this is a stupid question, but is it a creative? It is a creative outlet, like being a musician is creative, but it's also very technical, isn't it?
Yes, and I think you know, you hear lots of parallels between architecture and music. You know, architecture is frozen music, but I actually think the parallels are far more in the execution. And you're absolutely right that being a great musician is about bringing the artistic through the technical, you know, through the technical execution that you bring about beauty. And architecture is actually very similar, that you also have to bring together lots of different things, lots of different people. You know, it's not just about what comes out of my mind, it's what my staff work on, it's what our builders do, it's what the consultants do. It is about bringing all those people together in a technical way to produce the end result, which has to be artistic and functional, which is that step beyond music, where music can just be artifice or beauty, I guess, if that makes sense. So there's that added pressure, obviously. It has to stand up. So.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. So, I mean, we've got an amazing project here to talk about, and I think it'd be great just to show everybody, people that don't know you and what you do. It'd be great to show this particular project, which is in Sydney's north over the bridge at Kirribilli. Before we start to open up that run of images, Mel, is there a particular ethos or stamp, or is there a thread that runs through your projects? If we just say we're talking about residential homes that you guys produce, and you as, you know, head architect, is there a thread that is really Bayl architecture that is kind of there's something reoccurring there?
I think the reoccurring thing in our work is a sense of a sense of robustness and openness and warmth, that the spaces can be things other than maybe what they were originally intended, but that they don't lose their articulation, you know. So this isn't about creating enormous open plan spaces that are really difficult to furnish, you know. Oh yes, you can furnish different ways, but they're really difficult to furnish, you know. It's really about thinking about place, you know, and I think we're very interested in site. We're very interested in something. I did an interview with Nikki Lobo, who used to write for InDesign and so forth, and in that interview I talked about how the thing that for me was important in every project was creating a view, even if it was a really run-of-the-mill suburban site where the only view you feel like is your neighbour's backyard. It's about creating points of focus and kind of almost as a respite or an escape from the everyday and from the screen, you know, where we're surrounded by screens and things that want to control us and that we feel controlled by. And sometimes it's having those focused glimpses or vistas or views to things that might otherwise not be considered very interesting at all. I think that is really key to creating flow and connection in projects.
That's a very interesting way to describe what you do, Mel. And I'm thinking, I'm kind of putting this together as we talk, as I think about showing these images from your Dawsian House project, and you're talking about different views and creating different sort of vistas. I can kind of see that here. I think it'd be great to just sort of kick this off and ask you to talk us through that. Sure. Do you mind if I bring these up, Mel? I'd just love to bring this to the broadcast. And we'll modify our view so that we're getting the best possible view here. One of the things, Mel, I'm going to hand over to you, but this was fabulous. Walking through into this home, you've got glass floors there.
Yes.
Which is a bit scary because you're walking over the glass and you're probably thinking, Adam, oh, please, but you're walking over the glass and literally you're looking down and you know, if you were kind of...
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
the clients do have a couple of friends who get really freaked out by the glass floor. The client, she does genuinely suffer from claustrophobia, and she was very concerned about feeling like in a two-story house. So they lived in the Netherlands for a long time, so she knew what it was to live in a multi-story house, and she said, I want the feeling that I'm in two places at once, that the downstairs isn't separated, but also that the downstairs isn't dark and doesn't feel enclosed. And so we worked through, in the develop design phase, I think we decided to introduce these glass floors, which were inspired by a visit that I made to the Auckland Art Gallery by FJMT, where they connect the new part of the building to the old part of the building with this glass floor. And it's not so much to sort of bring light through, but to kind of create this really interesting connection between the old and the new. And I thought, well, we are trying to connect the old and the new here. We're trying to rethink how does this semi-detached cottage stop being this narrow corridor? How can we bring light vertically into the space? And so I presented this idea of the glass floor to Bob and Sharon, and they loved it. And it was absolutely, what's the word? I think it was just cemented into the project. I mean, it's not physically cemented, but it was cemented into the project from the get-go. There was never a question that we were doing the glass floors. And yes, it can be a bit startling for people the first time they walk in. They go, oh, I've got to walk across this. It's almost like asking them to walk across a moat. But I think once people walk across it and they start to make sense of how the house works, and then when you stand downstairs and you look up the glass and up the wall, and you can see the ridge line, because we, as you can see in the image, we raked the ceiling. So we took away all the existing ceiling framing. So we had to prop the ceiling. That's the original roof. So we had to prop the roof. We took out all the ceiling joists. And so you can see all the original brickwork. And so when you stand on the ground floor and you see that, the sense of space and expansiveness is just, you know, you've been there. But even for myself as the architect, I feel that it's incredibly successful, and it really does what the client wanted. But it also brings a lot of joy and light to the space, you know.
It's fabulous to go into that. I mean, there's a picture here. Nothing's like the real thing, but it's true. When you walk into that and you see the juxtaposition between the old, and you can see the brickwork, and you've just said that's the original ceiling. And also too, you know, it's all of these different views out to different, I mean, of course, this is a drop-dead gorgeous view of the Sydney Harbour as you walk through to the end. But it like you were saying, all of that light sort of play, and not only, you don't always consider this, obviously, in terms of how sunlight will flood in. But Mel, I notice there's a lot of interesting lighting that you've done in the rest of the home in terms of, you know, electronic light. So can we talk a bit about that?
Yep. So because of where the ceiling line is, and because of the way that we wanted that hallway to feel very uninterrupted, we have a lot of strip LED lights, or very, very inconspicuous pendant light. So the pendant light that sits over the pendant light over the island, and the similar pendant over the dining table, were designed so they basically blended and sort of just kind of disappeared with the framing of the windows. And they were all made by Darkon in Melbourne, so they're all custom made, and in many ways, considering they're custom made, very affordable, very reasonably priced, and we were able to work with them directly. So the lighting is very discreet. You know, there's not a great number of down lights per se. A lot of it is strip lighting along the floor, up lighting underneath the glass floor. There's a cutout that's about getting reflected light come from. So the whole point is to minimise the number of places where you see a light fitting, if that makes sense. The light source is always very, and not sort of, you know, in your face. So yeah. Yes.
So we're getting away from that epidemic of the downlights sort of syndrome, the pot lights everywhere.
Yeah,
and you're
yes,
fabulous. Mel, I've got to say, there's people here that are really connecting with you today. I think Christine is saying, can you come back next week? The reason she's saying that, just regular, every Friday, glass of wine, we're good. I think Christine is actually an interior architect. Or she studied interior architecture, so Christine was on the show, but I think that's what she's saying there. Lisa's popped on, and she's just saying, Mel, great descriptions of the project with the glass floors. Mel's passion really comes through. Well, it certainly does. The proof's in the pudding, and it's great to hear. I mean, I'm sure we could sit here for an hour and a half going through all these nuances that we're talking about. Kate St. James is here too, by the way, Mel.
Okay.
Kate St. James is here watching. So, yeah, fabulous. I mean, the other thing too, Mel, is I know that the other thing that struck me too is just, I mean, chic to me was the kitchen. And I think, is it important to make use of all the available space in there? I'm not sure. You've got that cupboard that you sort of pull out in the kitchen. I'm going to start to, I mean, we're going through, there's that's the front of the house.
That's right.
But there's like a metal detail, brass detail in the kitchen, which I thought was really cool. Actually, I've gone back,
Yeah,
but
there it is. There,
you know,
there it is. Yeah.
yeah, so it's on a 45-degree angle, and you would just think that that is sort of filled in and there's nothing behind it, but you go and open that up and you've got all this additional storage in that sort of 45-degree corner.
Yeah.
So is storage still a consideration? Do you think I mean, has it got to be to the maximum, or can we have too much? Or
I think we've got to be careful that we don't make it look like the locker room on top of the locker room. Like, I think it's tempting to sort of just put an endless number of cupboards and things. And I think it's about, so in this project, we were very careful to create a datum line that all the openable storage went to, and that we had to accept that if we started going above that line, the kitchen would start to overpower the space. And we were very keen not to do that. In the walk-in robe, we have definitely maximised it, and that's to allow them to manage summer and winter wardrobes and all those sorts of things. So I think that storage is hugely important. I think being smart about how storage is, pardon me, not enough wine, integrated into the architecture, I think is really important. And we try to use storage as an organising device and as a material device in our designs, not just as something that's being storage. We call it, I mean, everyone likes to call it smart storage these days, but we like to think that our storage ideas are a way of enlivening and bringing the concept of the house into every detail, if that makes sense.
Right. Mel, with this project, what sort of brief are you getting from your client? I mean, you mentioned the client's names, but are you getting a very specific brief, and how much does that sort of change and evolve as you go through the design process?
I think there were some, like, a lot of clients come and they have a reasonable sense of what they want to achieve. I think for these guys, the brief itself was fairly straightforward. I think what was more challenging was their overarching brief of when you came through across the threshold of the front door, that you felt like the past, honey, was left behind because it's in a conservation area. So they really wanted this contrast of the outside skin at the front of the street being heritage and walking in and being very contemporary. So that was, I mean, it wasn't difficult to achieve, but that was actually the brief in many respects. And this being in two places at once. You know, the fact that it has 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms or whatever, you know, that's kind of a functional brief, but it's not really the brief about what the architecture needs to achieve. So we get some clients who have a good understanding of what the architecture needs to achieve, and others who really only understand their project from a functional point of view. And that's fine, because our role as the architect is really to take that and transform that, not to necessarily just satisfy ourselves, our aesthetic needs, but really to kind of, give the project more, what's the word? More purpose than just being a functional solution. Hello,
Right.
Kate. It's lovely to see you.
Yeah, you got a lot of fans here. That's okay. Yeah, no, we got a lot of people here enjoying the discussion. So what else, Mel, in terms of Dawsey? And I mean, there's so much to talk about here. I was just thinking we've got the original blueprint there, and you were just talking to that. Then is the front of the house, and then as you were saying, it really is designed. I mean, that looks, you know, who knows what's going on behind that. But
yes.
I can see what you mean about, you know, really going from one feel, the past, and into a totally different future there. So what else was there? Sorry, Mel.
If you get back a photo, what I can also tell the viewers is that we've actually just finished the other side of the semi, completely different client, and we photographed that last week. With Kat Wu, who also photographed the Dawsian house. And that has been a very interesting process. It's a very unique opportunity. And to have two very different clients, and to get the project to work together, because in a way it starts to say different things about the project you've already finished, which is the Dawsian house. So the next door house is called the Zuster house, which is sister in Dutch. And the clients have 2 daughters. So it's very appropriate. It's very appropriate named. But yes. And it's slightly different design. I mean, obviously, and it's built in brick, but I think it's been interesting to take the learnings from this and put them into a new project. So
I'd love to see the photos, Mel, because that was happening, I think, when you took me through the project. It wasn't finished.
Yes. No.
Any challenges with this? Any specific challenges that jump out from memory on Dawsian?
Oh, you know.
Which one of 1,000?
Digging out purple sandstone for days, toxic waste in the backyard, a sewer line that was 2.5 metres underground that had to be encased thanks to Sydney Water, who had no idea there was one there. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. I mean, these are all the really boring things that you have to deal with to get to that end result. Nobody's going to give you an award for that stuff, you know, but it's doing it well is part of managing the client, managing the project, and yeah.
Do you have a way that you keep your perspective? Because you would run into huge challenges round the clock, day in, day out. And you've got to also manage a team of people and keep everybody focused and at times keep the stress levels down. Is there a way that is there a technique that you deal with on a personal level to manage that sort of stress?
Some days I don't think I do it very well. I think sometimes it's really, I think one of the things I find hardest actually is dealing with councils and some extremely bureaucratic people who work in councils, and they are very small-minded, and it's really difficult to convince them of the overall architectural value of what you're doing and that it's justifiable from a planning point of view. And some people just don't like things to be different. They don't like change. And I think that can be exceedingly frustrating because you don't have as much control over it as other parts of the process. I think in terms of trying to keep things in perspective, I don't know. I think I kind of look back at the number of battles we've won and I think, well, we've won that many battles. I'm sure we can win a few more. Resilience is key in this profession though, and industry. I mean, I think it's challenging also to run a team at the same time and keep everyone in the same boat as what you are in, you know, going on the same journey and hoping that they want to still be on that journey with you. So, but anyway.
Well, you do it very well, Mel.
Thank you. I try.
Can I ask you do a lot of mentoring, and obviously there's a reason why people would be coming to you and wanting to seek some sort of understanding based on your experience. Do you enjoy that part of what you do, the mentoring side of it?
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, I'm actually not doing quite as much mentoring as I used to. I guess the mentoring I'm doing is a bit different now. The mentoring I've done in the past has been with architecture students and young graduates and architects starting their own practices. And, you know, they all have very different needs. And I think some people sometimes came to me thinking I could just solve all their problems. And it's like, well, no, a good mentor doesn't solve your problems. A good mentor gives you frameworks or suggestions that you can take away and try to work out what's the best way forward. Otherwise, like, a good mentor doesn't spoon feed. That's basically what I'm saying. The mentoring I'm doing now, or the kind of leading through, I guess, or example, I'm now the state convener for the registration examination and have been for the last year and a bit, and in New South Wales. And that's really about getting architects to think about how we register new architects in a way. And so there are lots of people who are great architects who are not really suitable for examining. That's not their strength. So it's about finding the right people and fostering in them the skills and the capability and the attitudes necessary to examine well, because we do need to make sure that we are A, maintaining a standard, but B, that candidates have their best opportunity to get registered. You know, because we want the profession to flourish. It's not about it's not a big club, but there, like I said, there has to be a standard, because, you know, architects are sit underneath the Architects Act, which is legislation. It's very serious. I currently sit on the disciplinary committee for the Architects Registration Board, another hat that I wear. And, you know, we do see some really terrible things that some architects are doing, and you sort of think, well, unfortunately these sorts of things occur in all professions. It's not because architects are bad, it's just that I think some of the things that people make mistakes about is because they actually weren't given very good guidance or mentoring maybe in their younger years, and they've learnt bad habits, or they've gone off on their own and try to run their own business, and maybe they're just not really suited to that, and nobody sort of sat them down and said, do you really think this is the pathway for you? And I think I've had a few friends start their own practices and really learn the hard way that maybe they're just not really cut out for that. And I think there's a real lack of good career advice and mentoring across the whole industry and profession. I see it at university where I teach an adjunct at UTS, and I look at a lot of students and I think, what are you here for? Like, undergraduate, fine, because a lot of people are just finding themselves, and a lot of people take the undergraduate degree and go off and do something else. But if you've come back for masters, if you don't know why you're there, you're wasting your time and your money, because you're getting a degree that is going to take you in a particular direction, at least in the first few years of your postgraduate career. And, trying to get some students just, I just really think someone really just needs to give you some career advice. They might need to, like on Australia's Got Talent, where sometimes that's the first time that person's ever been told they can't sing, all their whole life. But it is a little bit like that. And I sit there going, some of these students just really shouldn't be here, and that's that. But, the universities have an insatiable appetite for income. So I won't go any further but on that line. But I think, there are challenges with who's entering the profession or the industry. And so for all of the kind of attrition rates, sometimes I think, well, good, because there's a lot of people I see come through the university system who probably should never have entered the industry in the first instance. And that might sound harsh, but, after 10 years of solidly teaching at UTS, and then seeing how people progress in their career once they leave, or don't progress or leave or go off and do something else, it's the facts. And very few people will have that vision or that opportunity or oversight to see what happens at university, what happens afterwards, and what happens later on down the track. So I feel very privileged to be in that position. It just sometimes makes me very cynical. So I have to temper that, I guess. But anyway.
I think we all in the we got some interference there. I think, Mel, we all need that honest feedback at some point, don't we, though, to move forward. And maybe sometimes the way forward is to get out of that particular profession. Yeah. Kate has said that resilience is key. Oh, yeah. And Lisa's saying that I feel that universities don't do enough to educate students to run a business. I know that's true. In interior design or architecture. Yeah. So you were talking I ran an elective at UTS for 3 years.
I didn't do it the last 2 years, which rated through the roof with the students. It was filled within 3 hours of being open on their online portal, and it was called Risky Business, and it was basically giving students as an elective subject an opportunity to see what all the demands were of running a business, and their main assignment was to set up a hypothetical business, and they had to present the business like it was a design project. So they had to talk about the philosophy and the marketing and the name and what their key target market was, and all these sorts of things. They had to present the whole thing like it was a design. We had a panel with architects and a marketing person, and so they weren't just presenting in the echo room, as I call it, crib sessions. Yeah. So they had well outside of the industry going, well, I don't really buy that story, and that's not a very good narrative. And it was challenging, but the students loved it. And I know the university would love me to run it again. It's just very draining running that course, but I agree that there's very little opportunity given to people to really understand the impact of how a business runs on how practice works. And I think some people say, but you can only really learn that when you're in practice. But the problem is that a lot of practitioners are very secretive about how they run their business, and they don't let younger staff see what goes on. So I hear stories of staff of people who work in different practices, small and large, who say they've never seen a fee proposal. They don't think they've ever seen a client architect agreement. And I'm like, well, this is ridiculous. These are the key point at which we connect with the client. That's the laying of the ground rules. And the fact that there are practitioners out there who just don't even think their staff aren't interested, or they don't want their staff to be interested, that they hide this stuff. It's like, well, what have you got to hide? Are you not running a business well enough that you're willing to share that information with your staff? And the fact is that we know from how underpaid many people are in architecture. You know, there's been a whole lot of hoo-ha overseas about unpaid internships, which are absolutely illegal in Australia. You know, the fact is that, you know, there's a lot of practices that are living off the whiff of an oily rag and that are living off, you know, very low wage bases, and will find every opportunity and excuse to minimise their wage costs to keep running. But the fact is that if they actually ran their businesses realistically, you know, I think a lot of these practices wouldn't survive. You know, they just wouldn't. So there's, I think the whole, sorry to be so negative, sorry. But I do think it's an indictment on the profession, you know. But anyway.
Very hot topics there, Mel. I mean, we're out of time, but it certainly sparked up a bit of conversation here. Kate saying that 40 years for her, and yes, we learn something new every project.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, Kate said that that's why it's a good reason for people to go and work for somebody else first.
Yes.
You know, there's only so much we learn at college, and just going to Enmore TAFE recently and asking the same question about what those guys were learning about business. It was definitely an opportunity, I think, for more of a focus on that, or at least, like Kate was saying, go out and work with somebody else and learn how the runnings of a business, so that you can, when you do move out on your own, if that's what you want to do, you've at least got the skills to learn about the business. Because at the end of the day, if we can't run a business, then we're not in business.
No, that's right. Absolutely.
So, Mel, fabulous conversation. I want to ask you, though, as a closing question, what's left for you in terms of your ultimate project? Is there one in your mind? And what does it look like?
The ultimate project would probably be my own house.
Okay.
which I feel like is ultimate project. There's all sorts of much bigger non-house projects that I would love to do. I mean, I would love to love to have the opportunity to do a library or an art gallery or a community centre or something like that, I think. And, you know, we are starting to work towards that scale of work. We're doing a series of sports pavilions for Willoughby Council at the moment, also about to start one for Northern Beaches Council, and having recently become a cricket umpire, and having played soccer I don't play soccer now, but in my youth, I understand, though I have children who play sport, I really understand the need for quality community facilities, and I think it's really important that we do it well. So I'm really glad we've had that opportunity recently. And so I'd love to do some more public work, but I would love to do my own house. And building your own house in Sydney is, as you all know, a very expensive exercise, and not something I think I'm going to do in the next 5 years. But anyway, that's okay. That's all right.
I thought your house would have been architecturally nailed down by this point, Mel.
No. I live in a late 1970s Mirvac apartment, which actually was very well designed. The whole complex I live in you can see the detail that the architects put into it. It's an extremely well designed apartment, a very extremely well designed complex. So I love the space that I live in, but I think being musicians and, you know, the constant refrain in my household from my children who are teenagers/teenagers is I wish we had another room. And it's like, yes, I wish we had another room too, you know, but it's just not a reality at this point in time. So we all have to learn to live with each other, and that's okay. That's fine.
Fantastic. Well, I look forward to talking to you in the next 5 years or whenever it's kicked off, you doing that.
Kids need to get taken off.
Yeah, Kate's just saying, I think it's just a nice comment, that she loves the way you're stripping it back and telling it how it is. It's not negative. It's just it's the reality. So fantastic. We've gone over, and
Sorry.
I guess, well, I don't think anyone's complaining. I think we've got the board sort of flashed up with all of these bits of feedback. We've got some people that have jumped on here, definitely keen to see you speaking the truth, Mel. But I guess we should finish up there, and I've nearly finished my glass of wine. But what's happening on the weekend? What are your plans? Music.
Soccer, music, and swimming. I think that's what I'm doing, actually. Well, not
Soccer,
my
music,
soccer,
and swimming.
my children's soccer, practicing drums, playing drums, and some swimming. Definitely some swimming. So, yes, I have to christen a new haircut.
What did you say?
I said I have to christen the new haircut at some point. So, anyway.
Oh, you got a new haircut?
I did.
You do?
Yes. You'd never tell because it's just long, but I put a lovely, interesting colour in there that you can only see. You probably can't see it on the camera screen, but anyway, it's when they do a nice blow dry. I don't like to dye it. I don't like to kill it straight away.
No, well, darling,
Anyway.
we'll have to go out. We've got to have to catch up again for lunch. You'll have to have the hair out and show me the haircut.
Yep.
And I think, John, thank you. Last one I'll put up. Great to hear an earnest, truthful discussion.
Oh, thank you.
There you go. Very good. Thank you, John, for the comment. Thank you, everybody, today for your input. I've loved the conversation too, just on your process, and we've seen some fabulous images of your project, Dawsey and House. If anybody wants to log on and see, wow, the amazing, unique, fabulous work from Bayl Architect, just spelt BIJL. Log on to baylarchitecture.com.au or .com?
Yes. No, .com.au. Yes.
.com.au. It's a fabulous site. It's very chic as well, I must say. But the work is fabulous, and really should log on there and get an eyeful of that. It's great to look through the beautiful projects, all of the wonderful jobs. So we'll finish it up there, Mel. Have a fabulous weekend. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for being honest and telling it as it is. We're not here to fluff around. We really want to know the truth. And so much. I think this is like a replay for me as well, to play back and just listen to some of the comments you've made. And I'm pretty sure that once this is shared, other people will be wanting to do that too. But Mel, thank you. Have a fabulous Friday evening. Say hi to your family. I've never met your family. I've got to meet your family too, and your kids.
Oh, yes.
But you have a fantastic weekend. Don't work too hard. Get out of that office soon. It's 5:15. You had a hard week. But we'll leave it there, Mel. And I will catch you guys next week. And Mel, I will catch you at some point very shortly for our next lunch.
Yes.
See you guys. Have a great Friday and a great weekend. Bye, guys.
Bye.